road to the title actually goes through this man, Scott Bloomquist, who is closing in on him. The battle continues tonight from Joplin, Missouri. 3 wide down the backstretch. Oh, they touch. Wallace ride the high side. We're in the Show Me State, Joplin, Missouri, the Joplin 66 Speedway for 75 laps of United Dirt Track Racing Association Hav-A-Tampa action. I'm Mark Allen. Hi, everybody. Let's go trackside to my partner, Roby Helm.
Since we last left you, Scott Bloomquist has increased his win total to 5 in the Hav-A-Tampa 2000 season. That's put him in contention for his 4th Hav-A-Tampa National Championship, as just 44 points separate him from Steve Francis. Coming into tonight's event, the guy with the hot foot has been the Tar Heel Tiger, Ray Cook. He's tonight's pole sitter, and he's with our Bill Hennessy.
Roby, the man who starts on the pole as a winner here in the state of Missouri, having won down at West Plains. Ray Cook, you seem to be on a roll, and you were very quick in qualifying here. Then you won the heat race. Evaluate your chances here tonight in this racetrack. Is it going to tighten up and turn into a one-group facility?
Well, we don't really know for sure, but, you know, it did last year about halfway through the race, and we're just going to try to get in front as quick as we can and then try to hold them off. But I think we've got as good a chance as anybody.
And we will find out momentarily. As Roby mentioned, the points have tightened up. Wendell Wallace is 3rd, Rick Eckert 4th, and Freddie Smith is 5th. Ray Cook also solidly in the top 10 in the points in the 6th spot. Now, our reigning series champion, Dale McDowell, is here tonight, but he's not running his usual car, and Bill Hennessy has more.
2 cars are here tonight, both of them almost painted identical with the exception of the number, and Wendell Wallace is loaning out a race car. Wendell, this is something kind of like loaning a car to your brother on a date. What kind of instructions did you give Dale McDowell?
Yeah, I just told him first thing, we just put new body on his car a couple weeks ago and made sure he got to look at the right side there right before the race, and I hope he comes back to shop like that. If not, he's going to have to spend some overtime fixing it.
Well, I was wondering if you brought your pop rivet gun with you.
Oh, yeah, we'll fix it back up. Well, I'll just use Wendell's rivets. I'm in his truck this week, so we'll just use his stuff, too.
You finally have a sponsor for the season.
That's exactly right. Wendell's my sponsor in this race, so maybe everything can turn out good. I want a pay raise, too. I think I'm going to get this all paid pretty good.
Typical race car driver, always looking for the best deal. It's good to see Dale and Wendell back together after battling for the championship last year, and I think they can help each other this year.
Oh, to paraphrase Charles Dickens, for Dale McDowell, it's been the best of times and the worst of times, but he's always been smiling. Stay with us. The Grid and the Green are next. The 4-wide salute to the fans here at Joplin, Missouri. This is a makeup race, a midweek show. Got monsooned out back in June. Let's go trackside one last time to Bill Hennessy for a final update on the race.
The surface at any dirt track race is critical to the type of race that we'll see. This track is ironed out and rolled in very, very well here at Joplin. They haven't put any water on it, and some of the drivers are concerned that it may very well lock down and turn into a one-groove racetrack.
And preparing a dirt track for racing is a real art form. Taking a look at the starting grid, you've met our pole sitter, Ray Cook. Next to him is Wendell Wallace. You also met him a bit earlier. Dale McDowell now driving the 6 car, looking to the second 2 rows. Roby.
Skip Arp and Marshall Green in row 3. Point leader Steve Francis alongside Dan Schleifer in the 4th row. Donnie Moran, Brian Burkhofer, row 5. Freddie Smith, Rick Eckert in the 6th row. 2 champions, Scott Bloomquist and Billy Moyer back in row 7. Local driver Alan Vaughn in the 22. Looking back through the field, Randy Cordy now driving the 00 car. That was driven earlier this year by Terry English. Pair of rookies back in the last row, Dwayne Keeper and Lance Elson.
So we got a full field of drivers. Our onboard camera tonight, sponsored by Redline Oil. Steve Francis, the series points leader, sitting back there. He'll give us some early action, sitting in the inside of the 4th row. Field getting ready to go racing in just 1 lap.
Drivers working those cars back and forth, getting as much heat as they can into those tires. You can see the cars in front of Steve Francis doing the same as we get ready to go green, a half a lap away from the green flag.
The Joplin 66 Speedway, 75 laps of United Dirt Track Racing Association Hav-A-Tampa late model action. The field getting ready to come up to anger and put the pedal to the metal. The green flag is out, and we are underway. Clean through turns 1 and 2 on the backstretch still. It is side by side for the point. Nobody's got the advantage.
Ray Cook from the pole position. Wendell Wallace working that outside of the 6M car. He's going to grab the point coming off the 4th turn. Ray Cook back in 2nd spot.
Now Cook back to the inside. Terry Phillips directly behind him while looking at this battle for the lead as the front 3 cars have opened up a 7-car length advantage over 4th place Dale McDowell.
Everybody basically trying to get down to the inside, but Wendell Wallace continuing to run that outside groove of the 6M car as we see Ray Cook trying to come back on the inside. Terry Phillips out of Springfield, Missouri, a driver that knows this track well, sitting back in the 3rd spot with Dale McDowell in 4th.
Now we'll keep an eye on just how close these drivers cut it down to the inside. There is no berm here. The only barrier from shortcutting the track are those wide tires. Pop one of those and your night would be pretty much done. Back further in the pack, here's a good battle between Skip Arp and the 15B of Brian Burkhofer. Right next to him, the 24 of Rick Eckards.
Then right behind that trio, the Southern gentleman, Freddie Smith, in the 00 car.
3 wide, and Burkhofer to the high side. That's why his car is slowing on only lap 3. He's got problems as our caution is out for the first time with Wendell Wallace, our early race leader. We're back in the heartland of America, the Show Me State, Joplin, Missouri. Caution for the first time on lap 3 for problems for Brian Burkhofer. He is done for the night, and Bill Hennessy has gone to his pit.
The problem with Brian Burkhofer here is a broken distributor cap. It looks like it exploded. Brian, that's unusual.
I've never seen one do that before. I come off 2 there, racing Steve a little bit, and it just started missing, and I'm thinking, we just put this motor in today, so it's fresh, and that's the first time I've ever seen that. It must have got cracked at one time and just finally exploded, I guess. Tough luck.
Getting set for the restart. Wendell Wallace is the race leader, followed by Ray Cook and Terry Phillips. The single file restart procedure, you'll see an orange cone on the front straightaway when they get set to come around to take the green. In the drivers' meeting, the drivers were instructed to set a nice, steady, even pace to the orange cone. They all must race to the outside of it. As you see them do, the cone being pulled back now as the race is back underway.
And Dan Schlaper, the S9, the driver from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, trying to move down to the inside of the reigning series champion, Dale McDowell. This is the battle for 4th.
And right now, the track with 2 distinct grooves are running down on the bottom, and just to the outside of that, we've been seeing race leader Wendell Wallace do that. There you see Marshall Green using that groove, getting up just a little bit higher than he wanted to as the point leader, Steve Francis, in car number 15, moves underneath for the position. And trouble for local driver Alan Vaughn in the 22 car. He's stalled over in turn 2.
And while we're under yellow, a little bit earlier, Bill Hennessy talked with our series points leader.
He leads the points, and he's a mirror of confidence. But for Steve Francis, if you had a rearview mirror, you'd be looking back there at Scott Bloomquist. Unfortunately, you don't have a rearview mirror. So how are you handling each race?
Earlier in the year, we made a decision to go and try to win every race and not to, let the points take care of themselves. It's hard not to, walk over to the Hav-A-Tampa trailer and glance at where you're at, but, you try not to let that affect your decisions too much.
Taking each race, obviously you're out there to win. If Bloomquist is ahead of you, does it change your strategy?
Oh, you look up there and think, he's 2 spots ahead of me, that's 10 more points, or he's 2 spots behind, I think he's 2 spots behind me, that's 10 points my way. You think about that a little bit as the race goes on, but, everybody's so competitive anymore. It's hard to change a whole lot and be able to make any difference in the points.
Bottom line really gets down to when you start getting toward the second half of the season, you know what's gotten you to the top, and that ain't the time to tinker. Green flag back up. Back up to speed. No, that is not Wendell Wallace in the 6. He is in the 6M on the point. If you're just joining our telecast, he put Dale McDowell in a ride for this weekend, Monday Trucking sponsorship. And Dale never turned down a race car, no matter, I don't know a race car driver that would. Back in the pack a little bit, the 31 of Skip Arp and the 00 of Freddie Smith.
Right in front of them, Marshall Green in the 89 car. Smith using that outside groove along with Rick Eckert in the 24. So now Freddie Smith clears the Marshall Green car. Looks like he was going to go down to the inside, but sticks it out there in that middle groove with the 00 car. Now Rick Eckert getting a little piece of Marshall Green's right rear quarter panel. He'll shadow the move as Skip Art still working down the bottom as we go on board with Steve Francis.
Steve Francis solidly in the top 10. Scott Lundquist a little bit further back than that just for the moment. You're on board with him. This is pretty much what he's seeing. Watch how his head bounces around. Oh, boy, almost caught that inside tire.
I was just going to say, it's amazing how close they come to those Ute tires down on the inside. They point the front end down there. Look how close he is.
And the truth is, Roby, I just interrupt for a second. The truth is, he's actually aiming at that tire, but then the car will slide up away from it.
You hope it slides up away
That's
from
true.
it.
That's the time you don't want good traction.
Some great onboard camera shots from Steve Francis as we go back up to the leader. Wendell Wallace in the 6M car. Mark, if you'll remember, last year, it was at this race where Wendell Wallace had a big lead over Dale McDowell coming in. This was the third race to the end of the season. Wendell Wallace cut down a tire, and he's always said that this race was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, for him in losing the championship last year.
We'll be back with more from Joplin after this. Welcome back to the Joplin 66 Speedway. You're looking at our points leader, the 15 of Steve Francis. Directly behind him is the 1996 Series champion, Freddie Smith.
And Freddie Smith now down working the inside groove. Marshall Green behind him in the 89 car. Marshall Green, sponsored in part by Hatfield Racing Engines, which is located right across the street from Joplin 66 Speedway. So Marshall Green looking to do well in front of his sponsor tonight. As the caution flag out once again, Clayton Christenberry is stalled in between turns 1 and 2.
And Clayton running all the races this year. He owns a trucking company and is also the car owner for Freddie Smith, a man who absolutely loves mixing it up on the dirt. The caution is out for him. The field is slowed for the third time this evening. UDTRA officials checking with the multiple car owner. He obviously has noticed something, either a tire down or a vibration that he couldn't identify, and rather than risking himself or any of the competitors on the track, slowed on the speedway to let series officials check it out. Steve Francis and everybody else in the early part of the campaign watched Rick Eckert out of the box like a house of fire, winning the first 3 contests. Then they went down to East Bay Speedway for the East Bay Winter Nationals, and pretty much since then for Rick, it just, he got out so quick, but just as slowly, not in a big hurry, but just slowly drifted back into points.
Well, they've been switching back and forth between a Pontiac Grand Prix and a Ford Mustang, trying to find that early season magic. And they did pick up an additional win at Fayetteville, North Carolina back in April. But since then, they have not seen the winner's circle.
It just shows how tough this series is. You hit the right combination early, but then when you go to different racetracks around the country, different surfaces, you do a little bit of tinkering with chassis like you mentioned there, and all of a sudden you just get a little bit off and you have a hard time reeling yourself back to the form that you had at the beginning of the campaign. Dale McDowell is also a driver who has had a difficult season. Reigning series champion coming into the 2000 campaign with high hopes, but it just flat has not panned out.
Dale McDowell got off to a disastrous start of the season, missed a couple of races in the early part of the year, pretty much dropped out of the top 10 in points, and then he started a new business down in Chattanooga, Tennessee. That's taken some of his time away from the series, but he's looking forward to get back into the series full-time. The reason he's driving that 6 car, the sister car to Wendell Wallace, is with Wendell Wallace being in the points chase, they don't want to take a chance and try anything new. that might hurt them. So they're letting Dale McDowell kind of run the R&D program. They're trying some new things on Dale McDowell's car and Wendell Wallace running with his standard setup. So it's a good opportunity for Dale McDowell and for Wendell Wallace because they both can learn some interesting things with this program here tonight.
We're back on board with Steve Francis, the Redline Oil onboard camera. Steve Francis running with Valvoline sponsorship for the 2000 season. We're watching just how close he comes to those huge tires, and I keep waiting for him to hit one, and he never does.
Well, most of the time with Steve Francis, he's got that left front tire so far up in the air, it's probably going over the top of him.
Steve Francis is a driver famous for setting up his cars in such a way where he carries that left front tire off the ground, sometimes all the way off the second corner, all the way down the backstretch at certain tracks, and only when he taps the brakes does that left front tire take a set.
And you got to have a lot of finesse when you tap that brake because you set that left front down too hard, you stand a chance to break the suspension pieces up there.
Well, Freddie Smith is hoping that Francis makes any kind of mistake, and there we go, he's carrying that tire. Just now set it back down. One of the favorite drivers to watch because of that. He does this, he sets his car up like that way more than any other driver in the United Dirt Track Racing Association series. Fun to watch. We watched him do that at East Bay Winter Nationals. I thought he was going to carry it all the way around the racetrack at one point. Freddie Smith, a driver who is not always qualifying well, but always works his way toward the front. Meanwhile, back at the front, Wendell Wallace continues to set the pace as he has from the drop of the green. Our pole sitter, Ray Cook, directly behind him, and then it's Terry Phillips sitting in the third spot, but the top three are about to overtake slower cars.
And Mark, like Bill Hennessy talked at the top of the program, it looks like the track is beginning to take some rubber and start to lock down. When you see those cars start carrying that left front tire, we talked about Steve Francis doing it. That's pretty much standard procedure for him. But it looks like a lot more of the cars are doing it now as Donnie Moran is slowed on the front straightaway.
Number 7 in the series points, Donnie Moran from Dresden, Ohio, has slowed, bringing out our 4th caution of the night. And that looks like big trouble when a car is being pushed to the pits. It does not appear to be tire-related. Looks like a mechanical. We'll be back to follow up on that and more after this. We're just moments away from going back to green here at Joplin, Missouri. Let's go to the pits with Bill Hennessy, who's with our latest retiree.
Donnie, it sounded like ignition problems. They replaced the MSD, but no fire.
No, it's got to be the distributor. It's something happened to the distributor there. It won't turn over, so we're going to have to change it.
Tough break for Donnie Moran. Here's another driver who has had a tough season. Marshall Green picked up 3 victories in 1999. Really had high hopes for the 2000 campaign, as a number of drivers did. But right out of the box at the East Bay Winter Nationals, a pretty hard wreck. Strained his neck pretty severely. He wears now one of those neck collars, one of those foam-filled collars, but he's never really bounced back from that. And so far tonight, however, is having a solid run, sitting in the top 10 as we are back to action on lap 21. And right from the green, Wendell Wallace opens up a 3-car length advantage.
And that caution flag was really a break for the leaders because with the track locking down, they were approaching lap traffic. The lap cars are running in the same groove that the leaders want to run in, so there's really not any place for them to go without facing a problem of losing several positions on the racetrack. So I'm sure that Wendell Wallace, Ray Cook, Terry Phillips are glad that the lap cars have gone to the back of the pack as they do this year in the United Dirt Track Racing Association competition.
Yes, but as you saw just moments ago, too, that on the restart, as Wendell Wallace comes up to speed, the last car in that single-file restart is a full half-track behind, so it's not going to be that long before Wendell Wallace catches up to the slower cars. Back on board with Steve Francis as he is negotiating the track, aiming at those U tires, and somehow he does it again, misses them.
Aims for the U tires, but he's looking at Dan Schleifer directly in front of him in the S9 car, trying to reel him in. But with the track in the shape it's in now, even if he catches him, the question is, what do you do with him? You can't go to the inside because the U tires are there. You can't go to the outside because you get out of the sweet spot of the racetrack, and you'll actually slow down about a half a second to the rest of the field.
Well, he's giving up a little bit of space to Dan Schleifer, who is directly in front of him. Race surface itself looks pretty smooth. The problem is it just everybody wants exactly the same groove. Skip Arp sitting back in the 10th spot. He's looking to gain a little magic tonight. There's one of our title contenders in the 0 car, the Miller Brothers Cole entry of Scott Bloomquist. He is trying to pick off more points in his quest to overtake Steve Francis. Francis is 4 positions ahead of him on the track at this moment.
Well, you're not going to gain any points that way. And coming into this race, I believe Steve Francis had about a 44-point lead over Scott Bloomquist. But Bloomquist is kind of in a tough spot. There's not much room to pass here tonight. So he is just sitting there behind Skip Arp, waiting to see what those guys are going to do. But if any one of those drivers makes a mistake, you can bet that Scott Bloomquist will be there to take advantage of it. But with the caliber of drivers that we have, mistakes are few and far between.
The title chase has been an entertaining one, and for all the latest information on your favorite late model series on dirt, the Hav-A-Tampa-Racing.com website is the only place with the very best information on United Dirt Track Racing Association action. Speaking of action, pretty good battle here as Freddie Smith, and I think he knows about him, he probably knows that Marshall Green is directly behind him, and I say probably only because if you're new to this form of motorsports, they do not have rear view mirrors.
Or they do not have two-way radio communication this year with their crews, so they're pretty much on their own. But Freddie Smith, with years of experience, I'm sure that his senses of feel and hearing can tell him just about where anybody is around him on the racetrack.
Our race leader, Wendell Wallace, now starting to overtake some of the slower competitors out there. Be interesting to see how much they hold up our top 3 cars. Wallace has already worked his way around one of the cars that is a little bit slower off the pace, the Dwayne Kiefer entry.
And Wendell Wallace caught Dwayne Kiefer at the perfect spot. Now he's going to move underneath Lance Elson. So the 2 rookies, Kiefer and Elson, doing a good job of getting out of the way of the race leaders. As Wendell Wallace caught Kiefer coming off the corner, he was able to go to the outside of him. And Lance Elson electing to run the higher groove. So that is enabling Ray Cook and Terry Phillips to move underneath. But while they've done that, Wendell Wallace has opened up about a half a straightaway lead now over Ray Cook and Terry Phillips.
Wendell Wallace looking to atone for problems at this race last year. We'll be back with more from Joplin, Missouri, right after this. Drivers working their way around the Speedway. The battle for second here in the 75-lap feature of the United Dirt Track Racing Association Hav-A-Tampa visit, Joplin, Missouri. It has been the Wendell Wallace story so far. Ray Cook sitting in the 2nd spot with Terry Phillips 3rd. And they've opened up a sizable advantage over 4th place Dale McDowell. There is our 4th place car, the 6 of Dale McDowell. The 6M is Wendell Wallace. If these cars ever got side by side, I'm not sure I'd be able to tell the difference.
Wendell Wallace has the M next to the number, and Dale McDowell just with the plain 6. That's about the only way that I can tell the difference. As Freddie Smith really turning up the heat on Steve Francis in the 15 car. You know what's amazing about the...
Whoa,
look out.
Hang on.
Dwayne Kiefer, one of our 2 rookies in the race, getting out of the way of the leaders and almost lost it, but he did a nice job hanging on to it. The point I was going to bring up, these cars running so close together, the professionalism of these drivers is something else, because you very rarely see them tap the other car in front of them. They run so close together, but yet it's very rare that you see these drivers make contact to try to improve their position.
And invariably, I shouldn't say invariably, but where they do make contact dictates whether they're distressed about it, shall we say. They expect a little bit of fender rubbing. They expect a little bit of crumpled sheet metal. But it's a matter of where you touch somebody on the Speedway that dictates it. If you're in the middle of a turn and you lay on somebody, well, chances are pretty good there may be a comment or 2 after the race. But if it's just somebody jumps the brakes a little bit quicker than you expect, the guy in front knows if he just got tapped and he changed his rhythm on the track. He says, well, yep, whoops, well, that's partly my fault, too, for, changing the way I drove the track. You've got to remember, folks, even though these cars look like they're going, 60 miles an hour, That is not the case at all. Television has always been very deceptive in capturing the true speed of motorsports. These cars on the straightaway are going well in excess of 100 miles an hour.
And sideways on top of that.
Wendell Wallace now working on these slower cars. This is Randy Cordy that he's trying to overtake now. And that has actually allowed our second and third place cars to close up.
Wendell Wallace going to the inside of Lance Elson in the unique walls and ceilings Bullet Monte Carlo. Lance Elson switching chassis brands, going from the Masters-built chassis to the Bullet chassis. And now they're behind Randy Cordy in the 00K car. This car started out the season as car number 96 with Terry English driving the Mid-Continental Fuels Rayburn Monte Carlo. And now Randy Cordy putting his 00 number on it as Wendell Wallace and Ray Cook getting close to each other for the first time in quite a few laps. Terry Phillips also clearing the lap car of Lance Elson. So the top three running together as they run behind Randy Cordy out of Highland, Illinois in the 00K. Cordy will move up to the high side and let the leaders by.
Threading the needle there for the better part of the last two laps before Cordy was able to get out of the way. Steve Francis on board with him once again, giving up a little bit more ground to Dan Schleifer. It's now a 3-second, according to our stopwatch, 3-second separation between Schleifer and Steve Francis. But the good news for Francis is even though he is well off the pace of race leader Wendell Wallace, he is 5 positions ahead of Scott Bloomquist. Every point counts in the national championship chase, and that is not hyperbole, folks, as caution is out on the track. For a car on the high side, it is Billy Moyer.
Billy Moyer, the 97 Hav-A-Tampa champion, off the pace and stopped over in the outside of turn number 3.
So at the 2/3 mark of tonight's contest, the yellow is back out for Billy Moyer. And he will get a push to the pits, but that does not look good. Anytime you've got that four-wheeler behind you pushing you to the pits, that is bad news. The Polaris ATV sending him to the backstretch pits.
I'm sure he'd rather be powered by his Clements power plant than the Polaris ATV power plant that is propelling him down the back straightaway.
And we'll be back with more. The final 25 laps from Joplin after this. We're about to find out if the drivers have been holding anything back through the first 50 laps or if they have played out all their cards. Billy Moyer is done for the night, as is Jimmy Mars, and I believe Bill Hennessy is about to catch up with him in the pits.
Second car that went out during this last caution was Jimmy Mars. Jimmy, what happened?
We got a new motor in the car, and we just got hot on us, and we were running on the track, and the track got rubbered up there, and we just figured it was better off. We have so many races coming up yet that we needed to just save it for the other races. Have another good night some other time.
And you can bet that Jimmy Mars will. Here's a driver that's got a lot of talent. A lot of people are expecting big things out of him in years to come. Here's a guy who has already produced big things. Dan Schleifer in the S9 won one of the races down at East Bay Speedway with a broken steering column in the last 12 laps. He literally braced his elbows up against the frame of the car, the roll cage, and literally muscled that car to victory lane. He's been to victory lane since. He's led a lot of laps this year and has broken while leading a lot of times this year. Real unusual, but here is a guy who is Mr. Excitement on dirt.
It's the wrecker or the checkers for Dan Schleifer. He's driving the Performance Roofing Systems, Rayburn, Monte Carlo. His brother Bill builds his engines at Pro Power Engines in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Wendell Wallace continuing to set the pace. Ray Cook has slowed just a little bit down the backstretch as Wallace Ashley is opening up his margin that much more. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, it's Steve Francis. Freddie Smith is hoping for a mistake, any mistake, a small mistake, a large mistake, a half mistake. He just wants to see anything where he can get around, but look what has happened. Yes, Ray Cook did slide up the track. Terry Phillips has moved into second.
Probably what happened, Mark, is when you go to a caution, the tires have a chance to cool down a little bit, and sometimes those tires will, what they call, glaze over. So when you come back to green, you don't have the traction that you had when you were running under the green. So that might have been what happened to Ray Cook, in the English Mountain Springwater GRT Ford Mustang. Went down into the turn. The tires weren't up to the proper temperature yet, slid up the racetrack, and Terry Phillips was right there to take advantage of it, and it looks like he is starting to reel in the race leader, Wendell Wallace.
And that is the story that we will be paying close attention to, because he has opened up at least a 25-car length separation between himself and third-place Ray Cook. And we'll be watching Cook to see if he's got larger problems, because he has given up a tremendous amount of ground to second-place Terry Phillips from Springfield, Missouri.
Ray Cook just picked up his second win of the season at West Plains, Missouri, a track that he has been very successful at. He's won the Show Me 100 there earlier this year, a non-sanctioned race, and then won the Hav-A-Tampa Super Nationals 100 at West Plains, Missouri just a few nights before we came here to Joplin, Missouri. So Ray Cook really has that track figured out. And you know, in 1995, Ray Cook went to 4 straight Hav-A-Tampa races at West Plains Motor Speedway and missed the show.
So goes to prove sometimes familiarity does breed success. You got to go back again and again. What doesn't work one time, you definitely throw it out and try something new the next time. It looks for the moment, though, that Cook's problems, whatever they may have been, have settled down. Maybe it was just that he just got too high up in that corner, and that just opened the door for Terry Phillips. Maybe Ray Cook saving the car a little bit for a last dash. There is a bit of a chess match that goes on in these races, because you never can tell when somebody may break. A classic example of that is Dan Schleifer, who was leading at Charlotte at the mid-race point, that just before they went back to green, slid up into the fence, damaged his car. He had problems also at Knoxville, Iowa, leading the race.
Came from well back in the field to take the lead in that race, and then I believe he broke a rear end or something midway through the race and dropped out of that one. And Terry Phillips is really reeling in the leader, Wendell Wallace.
We have a battle for the lead as we are getting down into the closing laps of this competition here in Joplin, Missouri.
Terry Phillips, as we go on board with Steve Francis at the Valvoline Oil Rocket Monte Carlo, and Dan Schleifer beginning to close in on the car in front of him. As, like you say, Mark, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here, and drivers are really starting to look for advantages. Schleifer in front of Francis. He's got the best seat in the house for that battle as Schleifer races with Dale McDowell.
And Schleifer has given McDowell all he can handle. Just hasn't quite found the opening yet. And if anything, Francis has been closing on that duo for the better part of the last 3 laps. Back up front, you haven't missed anything. Terry Phillips still right there, watching Wendell Wallace running through his tire tracks, taking a slightly different angle into the turn, drove it a lot deeper into that corner than Wendell Wallace did, doing the same thing at the other end of the speedway. So he's starting to experiment a little bit to see if there may be some way around it. Dan Schleifer, 8th in the series points, has been to victory lane a number of times, and as we mentioned, has led a ton of laps this year.
And Dale McDowell again driving the Monday trucking car. That's one of the 2 GRT house cars in the race. He's running back right in front of Dan Schleifer, back in the 4th position, as Terry Phillips in the Sportsman Pickup covers GRT Monte Carlo from nearby Springfield, Missouri. Terry Phillips, a second-generation driver. His dad, Larry Phillips, a many-time NASCAR short track champion.
And a National Winston Racing Series champion through the NASCAR ranks. Folks, a reminder, too, that coming up in just a few days, the Hav-A-Tampa shootout down at Dixie Speedway in Woodstock, Georgia. That is where the UDTRA Hav-A-Tampa champion will be crowned for the 2000 season. Tickets are still available by all means. Check out the Hav-A-Tampa website at havatampaRacing.com for more information on how you can get tickets to what could be the most dramatic race of the season. It certainly was in 1999, as we've got caution on the track. Ray Cook, who had been second most of the night, and our pole sitter, has come to grief with just 9 laps to go.
And it looks to be mechanical. The car rolling on its own. Looks like all 4 tires are still up. So a tough break for Ray Cook. He was really on a hot streak there for a while, but it looks like his night is done in the English Mountain Springwater Youngblood Concrete GRT Ford Mustang.
Came into this race 6th in the series points, and in looking at how the other drivers have done, 7th place Donnie Moran is already out for the night. So it looks like Ray Cook will at least keep that 6th position in the national standings.
Well, one thing that'll do is you saw Scott Bloomquist move by. It will move him up another position as he tries to chase down Steve Francis, who is running in 5th.
We'll be back with a dash to the Checkers after this. We'll be going back to racing in just a moment. Tough night for Ray Cook. Started on the pole, was running second for most of the contest. He won the most recent race out, but he is done for the night, and Bill Hennessy has caught up with him.
Ray, it looked like you left a lot of things on the racetrack. What happened to you?
I'm not sure. I don't know. Something broke in the drivetrain. I'm just not sure what it is.
Good news about Hav-A-Tampa racing is that there is always another one not that far off. 45 races were on the schedule at the start of the season, taking drivers over more than a dozen states. $4 million in prize money was up for grabs at the start of the season, and a lot of the guys out here tonight are going to take the lion's share of that home throughout the course of the year, as well as from the National Awards Banquet, which will come up later this year. We got 9 laps to go. This is the time that Terry Phillips and Dale McDowell and Dan Schleifer have got to play anything they've got left in their pocket to try to overtake our race leader.
Well, it would be interesting if Dale McDowell could get up there in second spot to see what he would do with his new teammate, Wendell Wallace, as Dale McDowell driving the Monday Trucking backup car to Wendell Wallace. The Monday Trucking cars are the GRT race cars, house cars. They are built and prepared by Joe Garrison at GRT Race Cars, and all of the technology and all the R&D that goes into all the GRT race cars that the competitors throughout the country buy come from the Monday Trucking Wendell Wallace operation. And Dale McDowell trying some new things for them, driving the backup car, and it's working.
Freddie Smith in the 00 getting real racy with Steve Francis, the points leader. Almost got into the back of him a moment ago, but was able to get on the brakes and keep from turning him around. Francis says thank you very much and opens back up at least a 1-car length advantage. This is the battle for 5th.
As we go on board with Steve Francis with the Redline Oil onboard camera, you can see what he sees out the left front corner of the car as he hikes it up in the air, close to those U tires on the inside. And he's got about a 6-car length deficit to Dan Schleifer directly in front of him. But what you can't see is Freddie Smith is breathing right down his tailpipe behind him. He can't see him, but I know he can hear him and he can feel that pressure behind him.
We're inside of 5 laps to go. Wendell Wallace trying to get to victory lane once again this year. He hasn't won the most races in the 2000 campaign, but he has been one of the most consistent drivers, currently sitting 3rd in the national standings. If he finishes where he is right now, he will pick up ground on both Scott Bloomquist, who has not been able to really crack more than just the top 10 itself. He's running back in 10th spot right now. He will be able to pick up some points on Bloomquist as well as Steve Francis if he can hold together in race traffic. But look at Terry Phillips close.
He is in heavy traffic with no place to go. The track's locked down. If he goes to the outside, that's going to open the door for Phillips. Wallace would slow down, but he's going to stay right behind those lap cars.
There was a little bit of contact, but at the line, it will be Wendell Wallace by just a car length. And boy, that was a lot closer than I think Wendell thought it would be with 1 lap to go.
I got to take my hat off to both Wendell Wallace and Terry Phillips. They used their heads. They used patience. They didn't force the issue. That could have been a big crash coming down for the checkered flag.
And that's why they're run all the way to the checkers. 74 laps. Wendell Wallace had this one pretty much under control, but he had to earn his money on that final frantic circuit. Stay with us. To paraphrase the song, this is the moon over Missouri. We had a pretty interesting race here tonight, a makeup show from a rain out back in June where Wendell Wallace, it was worth the wait, leads all 75 laps to take the victory.
Terry Phillips going home in 2nd. We noticed there in the top 10, Steve Francis 5th, Scott Bloomquist 10th. So Francis will extend his point lead as we look back through the rest of the field.
Ray Cook and Billy Moyer are a couple of mechanical DNFs, as well as Donnie Moran. So some of our top 10 campaigners had problems here tonight.
And Wendell Wallace will gain some ground on both Francis and Bloomquist as he tries to throw his hat in the ring for the championship battle for 2000 with the Hav-A-Tampa Dirt Late models.
Coming up next on our Speed Vision telecast schedule, the Hav-A-Tampa Shootout, the race that will decide the national championship. Check your listings. It is a big race. Speaking of this race, let's go to Bill Hennessy, who's trackside with our winner.
For Wendell Wallace, coming home to victory after starting on the outside of the front row. You said it was going to be a drag race down to the first corner, but looks like you had to stay in the throttle all the way till you came back to the front straightaway to make the pass. You led every lap. Congratulations.
Thanks. You know, the guy's been working real hard on this race car and stuff, and, you know, I got to thank Russell Baker. He built a new motor for us to come out here, and the thing worked flawlessly. And all our sponsors, CW Culver, Monday Truck, and AFCO Shocks, Turbo Blue Racing Gasoline. You know, if it wasn't for all them people, this deal wouldn't be possible.
Were you set up for an asphalt type of condition? Because the track was really hard, but it looked like you had everything hooked up. You didn't slide the car at all.
Well, we was trying to be conservative there late on our tires, and Terry got by Ray, and, you know, I knew he's going to run hard. He runs hard up in here and everywhere he goes, but we just going to bide our time. They's going to have to root me out of the bottom.
Were you on the limit with the car, or did you have anything left?
No, not really. You know, I knew when we caught them lap cars there at the end, things were going to get tight, and as long as, you know, the driver done his part, we was going to be okay unless we made a stupid mistake.
Congratulations to Wendell Wallace.
And as we take a look at the point standings, he will pick up a few markers on Steve Francis and Scott Bloomquist. The separation between first and second, though, has opened up a few more points. It is now 65.
Looking at the second five, Ray Cook still in sixth, all the way back to Steve Shaver in 10th, and Bill is with our second-place finisher.
You had a good, strong run there, but not quite enough to get up there and battle with Wendell.
Yeah, Wendell was a little bit better than me off the corner. I thought mine was a little better in the middle. My car wouldn't take off on the restarts like his, and as the race went on, I got better. But for the company here and as good as cars we've got here tonight, I'm pretty happy.
When you got close to him, were you hoping you were going to be able to run into some traffic, maybe to break his momentum?
Yeah, at the end it got interesting. I thought, you know, only chance I had, the track got one lane where you couldn't pass real good. But, I mean, that's typical when you got this many cars. But hard to pass, so the only chance I had was some lap traffic, and at the end it got pretty interesting. So if we'd had some more traffic in the middle of the race, we may have been in good shape. So it worked out pretty good for us, so I'm pretty happy.
Looks like the title chase will go down to the last contest of the season, the Hav-A-Tampa Shootout at Dixie Speedway, October 13th and 14th. Make sure you get your tickets now. If it's anything like last year, it was an extraordinary finish. The national championship decided by one finishing position based on the results of the shootout. Let's go back trackside to Bill Hennessy, who's with our third-place finisher. A great run for Dale McDowell.
Dale McDowell borrowed a race car here this evening from GRT. You did pretty good. Third place, a podium finish, you might say.
Yeah, I really need to thank O.J. Mundy and Wendell for giving me the opportunity. And, you know, we tried some things, you know, as I talked to you about earlier and learned a little bit. I tell you what, I didn't have nothing for Wendell and Phillips. And hated to see Ray. You know, Ray was running there second and third, and he fell out. He's had an awful good year. Hated to see Ray Cook fall out.
Were you concerned about burning the tires off the car, considering the fact the track was so hard?
I really was. You know, the things that we tried tightened my car up a little bit. So, you know, my right rear tire looks a little worse than theirs, but, you know, I had to abuse it a little bit more to get the car to turn. But, you know, shoot, anytime you can finish top five with these guys, that's good.
Well, first and third for the team, not bad at all. Plus, you don't have to work on this car. I don't see anything torn off of it.
No, we was fortunate, didn't tear anything up, and followed Wendell's instructions, didn't bend it up too much.
Maybe he'll let you borrow the car some other time.